Welcome back to the channel, everybody. We're smoking all my dragons, divine, righteous, almighty, greats, overachieving, never slacking. We're flying back over to Europe for a video titled "What Americans Don't Understand About Europe," and this is from Sabine Hassenfelder, if I pronounced that correctly. Original link will be in the description, and I'm ready to dive in. So here we go.
I've noticed an increasingly negative attitude of US Americans to Europeans and the other way around. It makes me sad because I think there's much to admire in both America and Europe. So today I want to talk a little about what I think is going on and what we have in common and what not. A lot of the US-European kerfuffle is friendly, and you find it in memes like "the European mind can't comprehend this," posted by Americans, featuring SUVs, highway junctions, or oversized meals and drinks. In return, we have the retaliation, the American...
Hold on, y'all. Listen, let me just say, I feel like it's a human problem because there's so much internal fighting within America. Then when I pay attention to Europe, to Europeans, they have their own. It's like humans are never happy. They always have to compete. They always have to feel like they're smarter, stronger, more slick, more creative than the next person. They always gotta, just fit. Want to fit. It's like a superiority complex kind of thing going on with humans. So it's ridiculous.
Mind can't comprehend this. With the metric system, walls of public bathroom stalls that have gaps at the bottom, and garbage separation. Speaking of garbage, in case you missed it, 2 months ago New York City introduced garbage bins. My European mind can't comprehend this. Of course, the American-European rub isn't a new thing. Georges Clemenceau, who was Prime Minister of France more than a century ago, said, "America is the only nation in history which miraculously has gone directly from barbarism to degeneration without the usual interval of civilization." According to the Irish playwright George Bernard Shaw, the 100% American is 99% idiot. And Winston Churchill allegedly said that,
Damn, that was brutal. That was brutal. Wow.
Americans can always be trusted to do the right thing once all other possibilities have been exhausted. Americans haven't been any friendlier to Europeans. The American comedian Jackie Mason quipped that England is the only country in the world where the food is more dangerous than the sex. Bette Midler declared that when it's 3 o'clock in New York, it's still 1938 in London. The American...
Hey, I don't mind going back in time.
Author and journalist P.J. O'Rourke said that you can always reason with a German. You can always reason with a barnyard animal too, for all the good it does. All good fun. But we also have many Europeans who think Americans are just stupid to accept living in the conditions that they do. That judgment has become especially pronounced since the first Trump presidency. And I'm laughing at Trump supporters. People that stupid shouldn't be allowed to vote. That's a quote from a young Dutch person. I can tell you from my own experience that among the Europeans I know, this attitude is extremely common. You don't have to take my word for it, because by the blessing that's YouTube, we have footage of a young American who asked Europeans what they think of Americans.
Are you also German?
Yes, I am.
And in Germany, you feel like German people have a positive view of Americans? Or
Not really.
no?
I think
Okay, so more negative.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you feel that there's been a change at all in terms of how Americans are viewed, like in the last 10, 15 years?
I think so, yes. Especially due to the Trump and the Tea
Yeah.
Party things happening. It got more polarized, and that made it more negative in my view.
This is from before the recent US election, but I don't think the situation has much improved since. In return, many Americans like
Oh, that was so quick. Let me go back and just
the US election, but I don't think
Donald Trump. Oh, do you have a favor?
The situation is much improved since. In return, many Americans likewise think Europeans are stupid to accept living in the conditions that they do, an opinion that seems to be mostly based on the economic superiority of the United States, or the higher income you can make in some professions, or the high taxes we pay in Europe. I encounter this attitude on Twitter all the time. The reason this makes me unhappy is that it presumes people in other countries must share our values. I've lived for some years in the United States, and
Woo, let me say that real quick. From dealing with so many people from Europe, just on YouTube, and obviously being American, it's just such different cultures, and I always say it. But it just becomes, people just start judging each other too much. Everyone like does things their own way. It's like people start to, one thing I learned about life is people start to, instead of people, a lot of people be oppressed by their own governments. You know, a lot of people be oppressed by their own jobs. A lot of people be oppressed by their own family members, by their own peers. And in order to project that, a lot of the times they look at outsiders and they start to project like this inner hatred towards people who are different. If that makes sense. And I feel like that's what a lot of people do. I feel like it's a lot of people who are just kind of like not happy with themselves. So they go online and they just start to just completely crucify and generalize people based off of where they're from. I get it. There's some people that are like, whoa, I completely understand. But then I have certain people who like, I've had in my comments that start to just, it starts to feel like hatred. It's like, all right. You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, I get it. I agree. You guys may do things better in this field, in this area, or, you know, but then it starts to feel like, okay, you just completely dislike all of you and you generalizing every American and vice versa, right? Vice versa, because I definitely don't like the way I've seen Americans make fun of other people's, and Americans feel like just that they definitely, I would say, they're at the top when it comes to having that superiority complex and just feeling like they're better than everyone else. Yeah, coming from being born and raised in America. Yeah.
values. I've lived for some years in the United States, and I believe that Americans just have different values than Europeans. We each have a different idea of what makes for a good life, and it makes no sense that we try to impose our values on each other. Have a look at this podium discussion. Can you?
I honestly, let me just say, I really enjoy her mindset and just the way she's speaking with such maturity and from a non-biased perspective is actually very refreshing to hear, because she's not catering or pondering to a specific audience. She's just keeping it real. And I honestly shout out to her for that. I love people. It's not enough people out there who do that.
On each other. Have a look at this podium discussion. Can you spot the American among the Swedes? Somewhat more seriously, many Americans, for example, think of freedom as individual autonomy, guns being left alone by the government, and being able to say what they want without limitations. This is why they're skeptical of the idea to make health insurance mandatory, don't think much of social welfare programs, and constantly complain about censorship. They've grown up learning that if you want to be successful, you need to take risks. They've grown up learning that failure is a normal part of life and an opportunity to learn. They've grown up learning to value independence. Europeans, on the other hand, are more likely to associate freedom with social security. They want to be free to pursue their interests without having to worry about, say, being indebted for the rest of their life because they wanted to study physics, having to ask for donations to pay their cancer treatment, or getting shot at the mall. In Europe, we tend to see universal healthcare, tuition-free education, and unemployment benefits as the basis of individual liberty. We accept higher taxes and regulations as protections from systemic risks like poverty or illness, and most of us agree that one person's free speech ends when it endangers another person's safety or dignity. We've grown up learning that bad fortune can hit anyone. We've grown up learning that we're stronger together. We've grown up learning to think before acting. Yes, these are terrible stereotypes, and I apologize profoundly to all Americans and Europeans who feel misrepresented, which will be all of you, I guess, because I think we all have some sympathy for both perspectives. Like, just among you and I agree that our taxes are too high. But by my own experience, I think that on average, these stereotypes are largely true. I believe that our different values go back to our different historical trajectories. The USA was built by rebels who fled from tyranny. Then they ended up in the awkward situation of needing a government for people who don't want to be governed. And that's basically still the situation today. Europe, on the other hand, had kings and monarchs for millennia and then saw the emergence of a strong
If you guys hear coughing, there's literally someone smoking by my window, and they just will not stop coughing. It's so annoying. But yeah, that's a couple American issues, but I'm sure that happens in Europe too.
labor movement, which only grew stronger after the First and Second World War. This is why we have such strong labor unions, which prevent a lot of the financial exploitation that's possible in the United States. And these fundamental differences reflect in the way that we deal with business developments. Americans tend to think that Europe's overregulated and slow and too risk-averse. They're right. And Europeans tend to think that in the United States, rich people make the poor poorer by burning money in overly risky investments. They're also right. A good way to see how the
Yeah, you are right. You're 100% right. Dang, this is actually this video is genius. This woman is needed. Like, people like her are needed today. Mature people with some common sense. Like, she's needed.
these cultural differences result in economic differences is this graph. It compares labor productivity in the EU with that in the US. You can see that the productivity per capita in the EU has grown far less in the past decades, and I understand that Americans are proud of their achievement. But if you dig into the details, the reason for the discrepancy is that Europeans on average work fewer hours. You can see this if you normalize this productivity by the number of hours worked. Then the curves look almost identical. What does this mean? I think it means that Europeans don't care a lot about the GPU. At least I don't. If an American comes to me boasting about how high the US GPT is, or how many billionaires are Americans, or how many big companies are owned by Americans, all I can say is, well, and what do you get out of it? Are you happy that...
I'll tell you what they get out of it. They get out of it the pride. It's all about the pride. From what I've experienced, everything is just about putting that flag up and saying we're the best. It's all about the pride. Overall looking, it seems like what's going on is you got two people who live in two different houses, right? One likes their house one way, the other person likes their house another way, just different. One may be bigger, one may be smaller, and just, do things differently. One person from one of the houses points and says, hey, I don't like the way you do that. Maybe you do it like this. Why do you? And then the other person gets upset. That's being judged, and they're like, hold on, but look at how you're doing that. That's not smart. Or this my way's better. And then it becomes like two neighbors, that are just kind of like at each other's necks, and they start to feel like they start to say so much that they start to just really, I guess, dislike each other, and then they go inside their houses. Hey, look what our neighbor look what the person across the street just said. They said this about this and that, but look how they do things. Now inside it breeds this culture of dislike for the way that the people across the street do things. You get what I'm saying here? but at the same time, there's both flaws. There's pros and cons with both of the way that they build their houses and that they live. And if they work together, then like actually work together, like the people actually came together, and maybe they could help each other. Maybe they could both benefit from trying new things with each other, from sharing and growing. But I feel like that's a lost art with humans. We feel like because our governments ally at certain times that yeah we work together. That's in question. It's in question. A lot of things are in question. Everything's in question nowadays.
You made the rich people even richer? If the answer is yes, that's fine with me and I respect that. But it's not a system that I would feel comfortable in, and I hope that you can respect that too. And that basically is the message of this video. I wish that we all had more respect for how people in other cultures choose to live their lives.
That's everything I just said with the whole, the whole story I just created about if someone across the street. That's pretty much all I'm saying is people just gotta learn how to have respect for each other and stop criticizing each other. But once again, I'm really starting to feel like that's a lost art with majority of humans. I mean, look at the state of the planet, not just Europe and America, but just look at the state of the planet. Like it gives you such a headache. I went to go pet sit today, and the news was on, and it was just so much going on that I'm like, what the like? I don't even know where to keep up anymore. It's just so much. Luckily, there hasn't been like another plane crash recently or anything like that, but it's a lot. It's a lot. The politics is on fire. I would say more than we've ever seen right now, and everybody's salty with America. And I'm not gonna say they don't have a right to be. I'm not gonna say that, but it's just hard to being an American to be out there publicly and talk about things from that's going on in Europe or over here, without having somebody come and just throw you in a box because you're an American. So that's the struggle I see going on within me personally. It feels like I just kind of get thrown in this box like you're not doing anything and you Americans. It's like
Americans aren't stupid because they voted for Trump, and Europeans aren't stupid because they pay high taxes. We just do things differently. I very much admire the American entrepreneurial spirit, their willingness to take risks, and their independence. But I also think it's good that we don't all do things the same way. I follow the news both in Europe and America, and that's become so much easier since I use Ground News. So let me tell you something about them. Ground News is a news platform that collects and summarizes news which has been published all over the world. Not only do they collect all articles on the same story in one place and give you a quick summary, they also give you a lot of extra information that you don't find in the standard media. And it's really saved me so much time. Take, for example, the recent news that the US has terminated support for Ukraine's energy grid restoration. You see right away that this news has been much more covered by the political right than by the left, which is really curious, isn't it? You also get a factuality rating for each news item, and it tells you whom the media outlets are owned by and where the news has appeared. You can also switch between a focus on US and EU news. Ground News also has this great feature called Blind Spot. This tells you which news has been almost exclusively covered only by one side of the political spectrum. And of course, I have a special offer for you. That's a 40% discount on the Vantage plan, which gives you access to all their features. All you need to do is use my link ground.news/Sabine or use the QR code so they'll know I sent you. I really think that Ground News is onto something with their news overview, so go and have a look. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.
that coughing is driving me crazy, guys. I will be out there in a second. Woo. Well, anyways, to focus on the video, guys. She's first. Well, I already said this, but I like her a lot. I like her a lot. She makes so much sense. Just non-biased. Just like she's excellent. Uh, but one of the main points she said is like we just so once again so different. Like the U.S., the way we think, the way we're in a sense programmed, the way we're brought up, like culturally, it's just so different. It's just so different than Europe. Even the way we're programmed through, like say, like Hollywood and movies and TVs, like it's just different. Like I've heard so many Europeans say, "Oh, pretty much Americans philosophy make everything like I cannot pronounce that word right now, but like use philosophy with everything. Get philosophical. That's the word I'm looking for with everything, and that's just how we are. It's just our culture. That doesn't make us like I mean, it's just who we are. Like like you get what I'm saying. Most of us, at least, like it's just different. It's culturally different. Like our schools, the way we're taught is different. The way we think is different. But I don't think that should be a bad thing. I don't think that should be. Oh, look at them. Why do they always have to like? U.S. is so big. You're always gonna find somebody who can suit your needs anyway of the type of person you are. Trust and believe that. U.S. is very large, and even within the U.S., it's just so different. The Midwest is going to be different than what's going on the West Coast, and the West Coast is going to be different than what's going on in the East Coast. The East Coast is going to be different than what's going on in the Southwest, and then to just Florida, and all these the Deep South. Like it's just so much different ways of thinking that we shouldn't be clashing out. I think we definitely should start to learn how to just try to figure each other out better without judgment. Even though it's a challenge for humans at this point, but maybe we'll get there one day. Either way, this was an excellent video. If you enjoyed this, definitely don't hesitate to hit that like, that subscribe, and that notification bell. Original link in the description. And everybody just be nice. It's a lot of mean people right now. Be nice out there.